Hi gang, John O'Brien here, your video professor, Jamestown Community College. This is history since 1500. We're looking at chapter 32 today, at least part 1 of chapter 32, the building of global empires. I'm sure you're keeping track of the news, staying hunkered down. Please check out some legitimate news sources. Experts saying even harsher steps needed to contain the virus. Look in Chautauqua County, where most of us are located. No confirmed cases yet, but look, it's coming. So remember when you were a kid and went to the beach for the first time, the ocean, and a big wave was coming toward you? If you stood up, you're going to get flattened. Okay, so hunker down, take it seriously. The more we clamp down on this thing, the faster the wave will pass and we'll make it through on the other side. So hang in there. Your education is important. For those of you who aren't JCC students watching this, hey, free material for you. Leave your comments in the comment section. Enjoy people watching this. So we're going to look at chapter 32, but keep in mind current events as well, right? Our overriding goal in history is to connect the past to the present to make meaning of it. Yeah, a lot going on today, but a lot of news that you can use. More germane to our course, please make sure you're checking Blackboard. It's our learning management system for Jamestown Community College. I'm not going to put up a quiz for chapter 32. I want people to engage more in the discussion. The discussion board, the discussion forum is how we are taking attendance for this course, right? So please engage in the discussion. If you took this course with me face-to-face, please get in there and discuss. If you were taking this with me as a hybrid, which meant half of it was online anyway, I need the presenters to manage the discussion board. So if you were scheduled to present on chapter 32, please get into the discussion board for 32 and get the conversation going and answer people's questions and comment to them, and I will do less of that, okay? So in lieu of presentation for the individual presenters in the hybrid courses, get into the discussion forum and keep the discussion going. For you face-to-face students who are scheduled, I think it's April 13th, for group presentation, I'm going to ask you to collaborate. Go to Google Slides, put together a slideshow, send me the link, send me a video link if you have a short video link. I'll put that together and put it out to our Blackboard subscribers for your class as a Blackboard announcement, okay? And then I will also put out there a sheet so you can kind of judge the handiwork of the group presenters. All right, so keep track of the announcements. I mean, our learning management system has to manage our learning, and that's my fundamental way of getting in touch with you enrolled JCC students. All right, a little bit of noise in the background. I have 3 pets tonight. Yes, 2 dogs and a cat. They'll probably show up in the middle of the lecture. So that goes. But chapter 32. All right. The building of global empires. Come on. Okay, there we go. So imperialism in the 19th century took on a new form. It was an industrial, militarized imperialism, different than, let's say, the 18th century imperialism that controlled North America by the French or the British. Okay? So this is imperialism by industrial powers, nations using their factory-produced weapons to dominate nations that did not have factory-produced weapons, if I can oversimplify. How do you justify that? You have the big guns and you can control either the economy or perhaps the politics and society of foreign lands. Well, quite often and unfortunately justified by racism. Okay? Remember, racism is a construct. We made it up. Not you and me. We shouldn't blame ourselves, but we can take responsibility for perpetuating it, right? So racism was created largely to justify slavery, to make profit off of enslaving people of different skin tone than the racist, okay? So to claim people were inferior because they look different, of a different skin tone. I use the word tonality instead of races because basically people of different skin tone, right? Different shades. In the 19th century, so again, 1800s, Anglo nations, Northern European, especially English nations, the children of English nations like politically the United States, would justify their imperialism through racism. Japan catches on to this pretty well in addition and uses racism to justify its conquest and its domination of foreign lands. So we'll also see in this chapter migrations, so not just outright political domination of foreign lands, but people on the move through cheap steamboat travel, cheap steam travel to foreign lands. Okay, maybe some of you, your ancestors, through choice or not, moved to different lands through this new industrial technology. All right, so imperialism will take two forms. One, will we rule the foreign lands, go in, conquer a place, plant your flag there, tax the people, tell them what they can buy from you, what they can make, probably nothing other than agricultural products or other extractive things like timber or rubber or coal. There's also economic and cultural imperialism. So instead of taking the globe and carving it up and saying this belongs to France and this belongs to Britain, peoples can be dominated culturally and economically. So the United States will largely go into Latin America. Instead of carving a lot of it up, outside the Caribbean anyway, it will dominate the economies of those societies, right? Again, in a survey course like this, for people just kind of joining us, we essentialize, right? We take the bare facts and we oversimplify. So to oversimplify, the United States go into Nicaragua and basically say, look, you can only grow bananas, okay? Or coffee, right? The rest of the stuff you have to buy from us. Right? So to control economies without necessarily taking over the governments of those lands, maybe paying off the governments of those lands, or at least the large landowners, but controlling the economy and culture. And we'll see this happen in China as well by Western European nations, the United States, and Japan. So different forms of imperialism, political, cultural, and or economic. What were the motives? What's the cause, right? In history, we're concerned with causation. Well, the cause tended to be economic, right? So let's follow the money. You criminal justice majors learn this, right? So there's a crime committed. Why? Follow the money, right? Sometimes the money was made. Sometimes it was just the promise or at least the fantasy of making money. Nationalism is another motive, right? So how do we unite our people? If we're Jules Ferry in France and we have the wealthy and the poor at odds with one another, how do I unite them? We're all French and we're going to move into West Africa and take control of it, right? So what's one way to unite the people of your nation, right? Nationalism. There are also geostrategic reasons. So if you ever played Risk, like you want to control this part of the globe, why does the United States pick up Hawaii? Well, it was halfway to China, basically, okay? And in the steamship era, you needed coaling stations, kind of like gasoline stations, but for ships, okay, for coal. At least that's the rationale, right? Also, there are cultural motives. Let's spread our great white civilization, whatever that means. Let's spread Protestant Christianity because somehow it was better than what other people believed, right? Darwinism. Charles Darwin publishes on the Origin of Species in 1859, just prior to this great scramble for territory around the globe by the industrial powers. They will misuse Darwin's ideas. Herbert Spencer and others will talk about social Darwinism, how it's, hey man, it's survival of the fittest, not just among species, but among societies, and somehow white people are better. So they have the right, the natural right to dominate people of who look different phenotypes, people who look different. So the rationale is racist, right? Social Darwinism is racist, or also this kind of civilization, mission civilisatrice. I'm trying to speak French and I can't. Je ne peux pas maintenant parler français. Civilization will be spread. So let's make the Vietnamese people a French Indochine Catholic, okay? Because we're going to spread Catholicism. I don't want to just pick on Protestants right now. So we will see colonialism, actually the carving up, the taking control of the politics, the economy, the society, the culture of almost all of Africa by European powers. We'll see something similar in South Asia by Britain mostly, right? We're looking at what is now Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. And in Southeast Asia, it's the British and the French, okay? So the British don't come out of this lesson looking very good, okay? But let's keep in mind that there's no one alive today from this era, so we need to look at the problems we're causing in our own globe. We'll look in the mirror when we judge others, even from the past, right? China, and we could add there Latin America, faced economic domination by foreign powers. Right? Industrial technology made this possible. Transportation, right? We talked about the steam engine being created, right? Pump water out of the ground, and you could attach a steam engine to the side of the factory and turn these kind of axles in the ceiling that makes your spinning and weaving looms and spinning wheels run. Well, the killer app was the steam engine, right? Once you make smaller and smaller steam engines, instead of making them out of brick, you can make them out of iron, and then out of steel, industrial steel, a lighter, more durable product. You can put them on boats, okay? So you can have steam ships and even a smaller app, put them on wheels, okay? Now remember, those wheels pretty heavy, right? The early trains, or trains today, very, very heavy. That's why you need the rails, right? That's why you need the iron bars so these trains don't sink into the ground. But that made transportation very, very cheap over land, obviously with the railroads, and over water by the steamships. Communication along those rail lines, and eventually dropped into the Atlantic from Northern Europe up into North America, we'll have communication cables. So telegraph, this was the instant messaging of the late 19th century. It was all dots and dashes. If you Google Morse code sometime, it wasn't something you carried around in your pocket. You had to go to a special Western Union station and send a message and get a message, but kind of almost instantaneous messaging along these railroad tracks, okay, the wire above them. Which meant what? Which meant if you were conquering a people and you needed more troops, you could dot and dash out the need for reinforcements. They'd show up on a train with their industrial guns and mow down the enemy, as the people of the Sudan unfortunately learned during the Battle of Omdurman by the British. Infrastructure. Well, you can put steam into shovels and be like Teddy Roosevelt and go down to at least the Panama Canal. Prior to that, the Suez Canal, connecting the Mediterranean to the Red Sea. So making a shortcut, so to speak, from Europe to the Middle East, okay, and in India. So the British will begin to call Southwest Asia the Middle East. For the British in the West, India was the East, and halfway there is the Middle East. So we get that misnomer of the Middle East for really what is geographically Southwest Asia. At any rate, Suez Canal, built by British and French firms, Panama Canal, built by the United States, soon after the Spanish-American War and the Philippine-American War, which we'll talk about in a moment. The United States decided it takes too long to get ships from the Atlantic to the Pacific coast or vice versa. There needs to be a channel dug through somewhere, the isthmus, I love saying that word, isthmus of the Americas. Teddy Roosevelt will get involved in a foment. It's a word you don't get to use much. Foment a revolution of Panama, which was a state against its own nation, Colombia, sending the U.S. Navy to help prevent the Colombians from taking Panama back, and then offer the new government of Panama, I think it was $10 million for a canal. Some French dude built it, became the president of Panama. It's all very kind of nefarious. And yeah, Teddy Roosevelt goes down there in kind of the malarial canal of Panama. I think that's when quinine was discovered. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers figures out a way to combat malaria so the canal could be built. It's actually opened just prior to the outbreak of World War I, at least for the Europeans. So, industrial technology, right? Military technologies as well. I mentioned the Battle of Durman. This was fought in what is now the Sudan, perhaps South Sudan, in West Africa, when the British, thousands of British troops, thousands of Sudanese tribesmen on camel and horse with swords, with muskets, faced off against an industrial army that could use the telegraph to send in for reinforcements by train and artillery, and they just mowed down the native people of the Sudan. Our textbook says 11,000 Sudanese, who knows, right? Many, many thousands, and a couple hundred Britons. And one of the officers in the battle, a guy named Winston Churchill, we'll hear from again, said, "Oh, what a glorious day this is." On the map, and you have this in your book too, probably a more clearer image, obviously, or you can Google this. Imperialism in Asia to 1914. And this is orange. Great Britain is going to take control of most of the subcontinent, right? This is India, Pakistan, and don't really get Afghanistan there, but they move into Bangladesh, Myanmar as well, Burma on the map here. The purple princely states of India were British protectorates. So look, there were too few British officers to run all of India, so they allied with local Mughal Indian princes and sometimes Hindu princes to govern the purple spots. Okay, but basically those were puppets. The British control all of India. They create a buffer state here in Thailand, so the British don't face off against The purple nation here, which would be France, okay? So French Indochine, or mostly what today is Vietnam, would be a French colony dating back all the way to 1857. When did the French leave? I believe 1954, right? Battle of Dien Bien Phu. And then who enters? You got it, the United States, right? So imperialism will continue to play out through the 20th century. This is a 20th century time. Will continue to play out through the 20th century and even into the 21st. The Dutch claimed control of what we mainly see now is Indonesia. They had claimed that back in the 16th century, continued to expand their empire there. So Little Netherlands has this huge empire in the East Indies. Japan, right, in our last lecture became an industrial, militarized power, pushed into Korea in 1905, 1910, and then we'll, after 1914, push up into Manchuria, creating actually a colony there called Manchukuo. Who else is here? The Russians had continued to try to move in their direction until, I can't remember, stopped at the Battle of Tsushima in 1905 against the Japanese. Or are we forgetting? One on purpose, the United States. Certainly the United States, a democratic republic, would not engage in imperialism. Well, yeah, okay, the Philippines, right? The Philippines becomes an American, let's call it what it was, a colony. The United States sent Filipino nationalists, right? Filipinos who wanted to be free from Spanish rule. Spanish rule? When did the Spanish enter the Philippines, right? It's named after the King of Spain back in the early 1500s, Philip II. And that's when they began to enter, okay? Magellan was killed there. So when was that? 1521 or 1522, right? So Spanish colony into the United States with the great assistance. The United States had the Navy. Filipino nationalists who wanted independence had the land forces. Ilustrados there, well-educated, European-educated, nationalists in the Philippines, like Emiliano Aguinaldo, led the Filipinos against the Spanish. The United States, however, claims it as a protectorate, okay? Well, if we don't take it, someone else will, like who? Well, the Germans, because the Germans, where are they? Oh, they're a brand new nation, right? Germany just unified in 1871. It takes a little bit of time to get its act together, and it's late to the party. I hate to call it that, right? But it's late to take territories, except right off our map here, right? Some of the islands will play a key role in World War II. Of course, by that time, they were in the hands of the Japanese for the most part. So the Germans will take some islands here, and the United States, look, under President William McKinley, an Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Teddy Roosevelt, who knew? McKinley said he told a bunch of Methodist ministers once that he got down and he didn't know what to do with the Philippines. It just kind of fallen into our lap, and he got down on his knees and prayed, and he believed that he had to uplift and Christianize the Filipinos. Most of whom, well, all of whom had been living under Spanish rule for centuries, and many of whom, perhaps even most of whom, were already Christian. And Muslim as well, right? In Mindanao in the south, there were Muslims. But the Protestant McKinley, I apparently didn't know that, or didn't think that was good enough. British India. So the British East India Company really began the British taking of the subcontinent, right? I mean, this was a land Columbus was trying to get to in 1492, and he gets really lost, as we know, right? But the Portuguese had made it there in 1498, right? Now a sea route from Europe to India. The Portuguese are not a strong nation, okay? They'll be essentially overtaken by the French and the British in the coming centuries, and the British move into the coast of India, where the British East India Company, right? Tea and, opium, frankly, and other British goods, spices, for the most part, I should say, Indian goods through Britain, spices. Kind of like, let's pick on Walmart a little bit, although actually I think Walmart's doing a pretty good job in this COVID crisis, so sorry for all the bad things Walmart have said about you, or Amazon.com, and sorry, I take those things back. So on the coast of India, we have kind of this Walmart situation where these big corporations would take control of, let's say, the beach, build a warehouse, hire their local soldiers, sepoys they were called, right, to guard the warehouses. So the British ships come in and out, taking out spices for the most part, bringing in, I don't know what, guns for their own soldiers. The Mughals had declined The Mughals were a previous chapter. Back when I was with you face to face, we talked about the Mughals, or sometimes called the Moguls, but that's something else related to skiing, so the Mughals. Indian soldiers rebelled against the British East India Company in 1857. It's called the Sepoy Rebellion. So my God, our big corporations making all this money for the metropole, right, for the mother country, England, is being attacked, right, by local Indian soldiers. And so the British sent in the troops. They put down the Sepoy Rebellion. Remember, rebellion means it wasn't successful. And the British decide essentially that a corporation shouldn't run much of India. The British government should run all of India, okay, either directly or indirectly. So Anglo elites, these are white English people, moved in, took control of the civil government, the court system, the school system, right, at least for wealthy Asian Indians, the army, right, the upper levels of the army, the Protestant church, right, Episcopal church, etc. They take control of India. What else did they build? Railroads. Oh, that's nice, building railroads. Well, it's mainly to take stuff out of India. It's not like being nice to the people of India. Hey, here's a railroad, okay? It's to extract goods, especially spices. So it's an export economy. What can the British take out of India? There's education in English and in the in British culture for upper caste, right? Wealthy, elite Asian Indians go to private schools. Lower caste, poor people, no school for you, right?